Today I'm building superheroes' origin stories out of Lego to turn these regular Lego minifigures into superheroes. We'll start with Steve Rogers and work our way to Peter Parker. Now Steve Rogers really wanted to go into war to fight Red Skull and Hydra, but Steve had one problem: he's too short and weak. So in comes this crazy scientist that gives Steve Rogers the opportunity to take some super soldier serum and get big in a secret lab that we're gonna need to build first. We'll start by attaching a barrier to the back of the build, and then we'll add a green wall that goes on top of it. And parts of that green wall are built sideways so that they can connect to the build. And there's all sorts of interesting knobs and buttons on this giant green wall. And to finish off this tall green wall, we'll add this large window to the top that hopefully no bad guys peek through. But now there's still a ton of open space in our laboratory, so we'll need to fill it with all sorts of tech and computers for our scientists to work on. And now we'll need to build the very center of the lab where we can test out the super soldier serum on Steve Rogers. Try saying that 3 times fast. But now we need to build a machine to help turn Steve into a super soldier. And this thing pretty much looks like a human-sized air fryer or a tanning bed. But now we have a way to make Steve Rogers into Captain America, and it barely closes around him. But after adding it to the build, we finally finished, and we can swap out our Steve Rogers minifigure for a Captain America minifigure so that he can go and defeat Red Skull and Hydra. This is super random, but I don't know how Lego minifigures are going to work on computers back here. I mean, their face is pretty much slammed into the desk. Now that we've turned Steve into Captain America, it's time to turn Tony into Iron Man. Now to start off Tony Stark's origin story, he was captured by some mercenaries and held in a cave, so we can use this large cave build and remove the top to use. Now the cave was located in a desert, so let's remove all of the green and colorful pieces from this temple build to make it look a little more accurate to where Tony Stark was being held. We can also remove the statue in the center. But now there's a ton of exposed studs that make the build look kind of ugly, so let's cover them up with some better looking tiles. Now Tony Stark's normal outfit with this Lego minifigure is a little too clean, so let's give him a more destroyed and beat up outfit because he's been captured. He's also going to need this little box of scraps and some tools to work on a secret project while no one's watching in the cave, which turns out to be the very first Iron Man suit, the Iron Man Mark 1, which Iron Man will eventually use to escape the cave. But first, let's upgrade the figure with some flamethrower pieces that have this simple design. We can also give the Iron Man Mark 1 a silver jetpack so that he can blast off and take out the mercenaries and escape the cave. And now that we've finished Iron Man's origin story, let's build one of Iron Man's creation's origin stories, Vision. Well, technically this was a 3-person effort, but aside from that, Vision is a super cool and well-detailed minifigure. He's got transparent legs and a partially transparent cape at the very bottom. He also happens to have an Infinity Stone in his head, which was taken from Loki's scepter. Now Vision's origin story comes from this weird device called the Cradle, which helps create the android, which honestly looks like some form of Iron Man's Hall of Armor, especially with these side panels. So I'm going to try to add them to the build, but we'll start with this basic wall here and then add this so that we can place Vision inside of it. Then we can add those translucent panels on the side to help get the shaping down, and then we'll need one more large blue panel at the top to cover up the rest of the cradle. And then we can finally place Vision inside. No comment on whether this is size accurate or not. Also, Vision is crazy because he picks up Thor's hammer right after being created. Now let's build our next Lego superhero origin, and that's Ant-Man, also known as Scott Lang, who looks nothing like the head that this Lego minifigure has. But this Lego minifigure right here has a much better head for Scott Lang, so let's add it to this body plus some darker hair to complete our Scott Lang before superpowers minifigure. Now Scott started out as kind of a bad guy, as he was a prisoner, and when he got out he tried to rob a safe under an old man's house. But what he found in that safe was the Ant-Man suit. So instead of going back to jail for his crimes, Scott Lang took up the opportunity to be Ant-Man. Now Lego Ant-Man has a very unique set of powers which allow for him to shrink to small sizes, like smaller than a set of Lego minifigure legs, or grow to this ginormous scale that makes even Lego minifigures look tiny. Now, before the Fantastic Four got their awesome superpowers, they were all astronauts. So I went out and bought a Lego spaceship to recreate their origin story. Now, this Lego set included 2 Lego astronauts, one of a futuristic orange spacesuit and one of a more classic white spacesuit. But we'll swap those out for some more movie-accurate spacesuits in a minute. The set also includes this little build, which I assume is part of a planet, and on it are 2 rocks with some minerals inside. We also get this little hovercraft thing with a storage container attached to it, which I assume is for carrying minerals around. There's also a little drone with a propeller blade, and the final random side build is this little 6-wheeled space rover, which has a tiny little laser on one side of it and a solar panel on the other. The main feature of the rover, though, seems to be this giant posable claw that is held together with a rubber band, which is also most likely made to carry minerals. But the real reason we're here is for this Lego spaceship, so let's take a look at it. There's some engines in the back if we open up these panels. The wheels under the spaceship are made of Lego weight pieces. There are some engine and exhaust details at the very back. There's a cockpit for one pilot pilot to fly the ship, and if we open up some more panels, it reveals some storage in the middle of the ship. Now we need to revert the Fantastic Four back to regular humans, and these astronauts won't do. Instead, we'll use these more modern blue spaceman minifigures and swap the heads out for the Fantastic Four. Reed Richards and Johnny Storm were very easy to make, but for Sue Storm we had to remove the backpack because her hair hangs over her back, and we can't just slap the thing's head on the astronaut suit because it's really Ben Grimm, who we have to make up a whole new head for, which funny enough is actually the same head LEGO used for Ant-Man. But the real question is, can we fit all the Fantastic Four members in the spaceship? Well, obviously we can fit one in the driver's seat, and we can actually fit all three, just not the right way, in the back, as one is just floating around back there. Now, as they were traveling through space, the Fantastic Four got hit with some radiation, which turned Reed Richards into Mr. Fantastic, which gave him the ability to stretch and contort his body. Then it turned Sue Storm into the Invisible Woman, which gave her the power to create force fields and turn invisible. It also turned Ben Grimm into the Thing, a giant rock monster prepped for clobbering time. And finally, it turned Johnny Storm into the Human Torch, which allowed for him to set his body on fire and fly. Now, the Black Panther has a very interesting origin story. He's also known as T'Challa, the King of Wakanda. Now, in order to become the Black Panther, you must consume a heart-shaped herb, which is a small purple plant we can make by using this little Lego stud. Now, it can be given to either add or remove enhanced abilities that allow one to become the Black Panther. When it's removed, it's used for battles to prove worthiness of the title of Black Panther, and when added, T'Challa lays down and is covered in sand and fed the heart-shaped herb, which allows for him to become the Black Panther. Now let's build the Hulk's origin story out of Lego, and that takes us to Bruce Banner. Now this is the only Lego Bruce Banner minifigure I have, and I'm not a huge fan of the hair. If we use Doctor Strange's hairpiece on Bruce Banner, it looks much more accurate to how he looks in the MCU. I'm also a big fan of this alternative head where it's got angry green eyes. Now the reason Bruce Banner became the Hulk was because he wanted to create the super soldier serum that made Captain America, but he didn't have access to a crazy scientist and a super cool lab. So instead, he accidentally turned himself into an angry green monster. So instead of using Steve Rogers' lab, we can use a new lab that I built for Bruce Banner, which has all sorts of neat tech in it, like this microscope build and plenty of other gadgets on this counter. There's a second counter right by with other stuff, including a functioning magnifying glass. There's a toxic waste bin on the other side, and then there's a scanning area with a super interesting Lego piece I've never seen before. It's like a smooth curve on top. And when that's all said and done, you can finish up by washing your hands in the other corner. Now let's add Bruce Banner to our lab, but first let's add a table. We can also add a gamma laser pointed at the table, and then Bruce Banner strapped to it like he's becoming the Hulk. Now it's time to build the iconic Lego Spider-Man origin story. Now Peter Parker works a part-time job as a photographer while in school, and he's sent to take pictures of a lab. We'll just ignore the fact that this is the same lab that Bruce Banner became the Hulk in. And while Peter's busy taking photos, a radioactive spider sneaks up and bites him, turning him into Spider-Man and giving him the ability to shoot webs. Today I'm going to build and test 8 different Lego superhero weapons, starting with the smallest and working our way to the largest. Lego Spider-Man's web shooters are very iconic. I mean, even a Lego Spider-Man mech has web shooters. So let's build some life-sized ones that actually work. We'll start with the most important part of our web shooters, which is this spring-loaded launcher. Then we can take a Lego missile piece like this and place it into the launcher to fire it. And it's honestly very effective for taking out bad guys. Now let's start with something a little more simple before I jump into a complicated web launcher. Now I'll start by building a spot for the spring-loaded missile launchers, which has some studs facing upwards, so that we can attach it to the top of this simple web launcher design. Now there's this large moving piece built into the web launcher which helps fire the missiles. Now this top part right here is meant to fit over your wrist, but my hands are a little too big, so I'll have to stick to holding it to take out our enemies. But now it's time to level up our web shooter. We'll use a spring-loaded shooter as our base just like the other one, and we'll build a nice detailed looking body around it. But we'll also need to build a firing mechanism, so we'll use this right here to attach to the bottom to trigger the missile when we push on it. But now I'll need a way to attach the web shooter to my wrist. Thankfully there are clips built into the side of the web shooter, so we can build a bracelet out of Lego bricks to loop around the web shooter. And surprisingly, for as cool as this brick-built web shooter looks, it doesn't actually pack much of a punch. And if you thought this Lego web shooter was cool, there's even crazier superhero weapons coming later in this video. One of Lego Spider-Man's greatest enemies is the Green Goblin, and we already built Spider-Man's web shooter, so let's build Green Goblin's pumpkin grenade. Now there are a few different design styles, but I think we'll go with this one. Now the interesting interesting challenge of Green Goblin's grenade will be taking flat Lego pieces that are square and turning them into a spear. By placing these 4 black bricks on the back, which have studs on their side, will definitely help us. And we'll double this build. And then we can build 4 more sides to Green Goblin's grenade with a different pattern, which will allow for me to start the process of connecting everything together. And when you put it all together, you take square Lego bricks and turn them into a ball, which is pretty cool looking for this Green Goblin grenade, which is also hollow inside. So you could place a Lego minifigure in there or throw it so it explodes. Another idea I had was putting Green Goblin inside the grenade, which looks pretty cool. But we might be able to do one better with this little stand right here. To keep the grenade from just rolling around, we can place it in the stand so it sits in one place and looks a lot cooler. Now you'll notice there's a couple of exposed studs here on the edge, and I got an idea. I'll add a clear stand to it, and then we can take this Green Goblin glider, which looks super cool and has some studs on the back so that I can connect it to the stand to make a really sweet looking display. And now we've built 2 of Spider-Man's most iconic weapons out of Lego. Now the simplest superhero weapon build of this whole video will be Wolverine's claws, which are these big light gray Lego pieces which are designed to look like Wolverine's adamantium claws, and I made 3 of them that are all identical to each other. Now you can open up your hand and slide it in between your fingers just like a claw piece, and when you clutch your fist it sticks out like a Wolverine claw. And for surprisingly how simple these Lego claw pieces are, I think they look pretty good. Alright, now let's take a look at this giant Thor's hammer. It's one of the biggest builds of this entire video, and because it's already together, I'm not going to be able to show you the build process, but I'll just show you it detail by detail. And then we'll use it to smash this Lego build. Now at the bottom of Thor's hammer, there's this real rubber Lego piece, which unfortunately isn't very tightly attached to the hammer. Then we move up to the main handle part of the hammer, which does a better job detailing Mjolnir than the smaller Lego minifigure version does. The hammer uses these smooth curved Lego pieces to cover up the hidden inner workings. But now let's move to the very top of the hammer, which is bigger than my hand and is covered in these large smooth dark gray plates, which when you take off the hammer reveals that the interior is somewhat hollow. But one of my favorite parts of the whole hammer is this little bump on the top that reminds me of a Lego stud. Now alongside this hammer we also get this shiny pile of rocks which have a title for Thor's hammer and a spot where you can place the hammer to make it look like it's resting on the ground. And now for the human comparison. It feels like you're actually holding Thor's hammer. Well, at least not the weight factor. It's light enough that you can swing it around and not worry about it like falling apart or getting tired, but at the same time it does have a nice weight to it, especially at the top. It feels like you're lifting something, so you get that mighty effect you want to feel from a Thor's hammer. And now let's see if Mjolnir is the real deal and show this creeper who's the boss. Alright, now time for the hammer to prove itself. Well, that was better than I expected, and there's like no damage done to the hammer, but the creeper can't say the same thing about that. I mean, I'm gonna be picking up creeper parts across my room for months. And surprisingly, I still have even crazier Lego superhero weapons to show you. And now let's take this little Lego Infinity Gauntlet with all the Infinity Stones and turn it into a giant brick-built Infinity Gauntlet. And we know it is one because it's got a sign on it saying so. Now, it may not be as big as a real Infinity Gauntlet, it is still pretty sizable when compared to a hand. The biggest downside of this entire build though is the fact that the gauntlet is stuck to the stand, so there's no way to pull the stand off of the gauntlet. But there's loads of cool things about this gauntlet, like all the shiny gold parts spread across it that make this thing really stand out. There's even some cool Lego techniques used just to get the right amount of shaping. But what really sticks out from the Infinity Gauntlet are the 6 colorful Infinity Stones, which we'll be building out of Lego coming up. Now, even though the Infinity Stones on the Gauntlet are quite small, they each have a unique design to them, which adds for some variety when building them. And on top of that, even though they may look static, the fingers of the Infinity Gauntlet are posable, even the big thumb off to the side, so you can move them in any way you want, or even to hit the peace symbol. Alright, so now we've got to talk about the Infinity Stones. The other day I was walking through the Lego aisle and I saw this mineral set, and stay with me now. And after building it, I noticed there are 6 different minerals, and all each have their own unique color. But there's also 6 stones on the Infinity Gauntlet. So let's check and see if the minerals match up to the Infinity Stones. Purple lines up pretty easily, and so does blue. We can also pull off the red Infinity Stone pretty well, and I like the shape of this mineral. We start to stretch just a tiny bit at orange, but it's definitely still there. But things start to fall off pretty quickly here, as this gold mineral is supposed to represent our yellow Infinity Stone. And I can kind of see it, but the farthest is the green, because this mineral only has a tiny bit of green on it. So I don't know if we can officially call these Lego minerals Infinity Stones. One help to our case is that the Infinity Stones all have different shapes. It's most likely a silly coincidence, but maybe these Lego sets are secretly connected. Now I know we've been building a lot of LEGO Marvel superhero weapons, but now let's go to DC with LEGO Batman and his batarang. So that means we need to build it in human scale. This batarang is super interesting because it's made of 3 layers, a middle gray layer, and then we build 2 black sides to connect to it to build the iconic Batman logo. And the best part about this batarang is that you can move it to fold up. The only issue is that when you do this, it often happens to break off and explode. So I've had to rebuild this a countless number of times, which is why I'm glad this build comes with a stand, so I can just simply place it on the stand and not have to worry about it breaking. Now this batarang and several of the other builds you've seen in this video were designed by talented LEGO designers, so I'll link their instructions below. Now before I show you the coolest weapon of this entire video, I was going to show you one more weapon, but it had a major issue, and that was Star-Lord's blasters. We have them in minifigure form, so I thought a giant version would look awesome. And it started off to be. The bottom looked super clean and it was going along great. I could even grab it like a blaster, but the issue was the top. There was too many fragile parts and it just all fell apart when I put everything together. And the worst part was that I spent $150 on all these parts. It was the most expensive thing in this whole video. Now let's look at the biggest and the coolest LEGO superhero weapon of this whole video, which is this giant LEGO Captain America shield. I mean, this is the LEGO minifigure version of the shield, and then this is the full-sized one. It's made up of these 36 red, white, and blue strips that cover up the insides of the shield. The shield is just so gigantic, even the star's bigger than my hand. And when you flip the shield over, you can see how intricately designed it is. I mean, you can even see all the little cracks and details to help make this thing a circle. My least favorite part about this whole shield is that there isn't a handle, but at least the middle is sturdy enough for you to pick it up. We do get this nice little stand to hold the shield up though. But it is a shield though, so let's see how good it is at blocking things. So I'm going to relive my childhood by launching Nerf bullets at the shield. And now that I've unboxed and loaded up my Nerf gun, let's see how it handles this. And now that I've got the shield lined up and the Nerf gun out, let's put and I've already knocked off a LEGO piece with my first shot. And after taking some more attempts and running out of Nerf bullets, I've concluded that this isn't a very effective shield. Now, you don't feel as mighty as Thor's hammer when you pick this up because there is no handle. I don't really think it's meant to be picked up, but there is one thing I need to do, and that's to hold these 2 sets together. And now I do feel really mighty. Now let's begin with Sue Storm, and since she is the invisible woman, we can use this transparent blue piece to swap out one of her arms to make it invisible. And now her superpowers look a little better in LEGO form, and I'll be upgrading more Fantastic Four members later in this video. Now the Black Panther's weapon of choice are these long silver claws, which look pretty cool, but they are the very same piece and color used for Wolverine's claws. So what if we switch things up with a black set of claws to give to the Black Panther? Now the most common web shooter for Spider-Man are the ones in his hands right now, and they can be launched, which is pretty cool, but there's a ton of more options that we can look at. Like these web builds right here, which make it look like Spider-Man's firing webs from his wrists. There's also this web piece right here, which is made of a soft plastic so that you can connect 2 of them together to build some sort of cocoon of webs to capture Spider-Man's enemies. Then there are these long web pieces which you can connect to buildings to make it look like Spider-Man swinging through the city. Now if you've ever built or owned a LEGO Loki minifigure, you'd know that his staff isn't very accurate. The old one's just oversized and awkward, and the new one looks nothing like the real staff. So I grabbed some LEGO parts from my collection to build my own version, and I started by building the staff piece, and then I added this clip piece with a bar on it, and then I added a LEGO claw piece in this cool gold color. And to finish the staff, I added the Mind Stone, and I think this looks much better for LEGO Loki. Now let's upgrade our second Fantastic Four member, and that is Johnny Storm, also known as the Human Torch. Now the LEGO set he came and gave him some basic fire pieces, but I think we could do better. There is a much larger fire piece on this LEGO Captain Marvel minifigure, so we can add that to Johnny Storm to give him a huge upgrade. And this Ghost Rider has a brand new fire piece element on his hands that's a lot more interesting because there's a stud on the end, which means we can add even more fire to the minifigure, which makes it look like Johnny Storm's flying through the air. We could also take it a step too far by adding this fire piece off of Ghost Rider's head to Johnny Storm's hair, which I think looks a little silly. But now we've made 2 of the Fantastic Four members just a little more fantastic. Now, did you know that there's one thing in common with pretty much every Captain America minifigure? LEGO does not like to give Captain America detailing on his legs, which is a shame. So I picked out 3 different pairs of LEGO minifigure legs that could be a solution. We'll start with this pair of legs that has a belt on it first, but no matter what Captain America you put it on, it gives the Captain 2 belts, which isn't very tactical for a super soldier. Next, we could try this pair of legs with red boots, which I think think works better than the one we just used, but it does look a little cartoonish. So I think this set of legs with brown boots and blue pants looks the best on Captain America. It makes him look way better. Now let's spend some time making some 300 IQ upgrades to Doctor Strange. Now we're pretty familiar with the portals Doctor Strange makes to travel from place to place. So what if I told you we can make a giant portal for Doctor Strange with only a few pieces? Now the LEGO Spider-Verse collectible minifigure series came with these interesting transparent orange pieces, which are conveniently the same color as Doctor Strange's portal. So if we take a ton of these orange LEGO minifigure stands and connect them to each other, we can slightly angle them, and by adding enough, we can create an entire circle, which can be used as a new type of portal for Doctor Strange or a portal for someone traveling through the Spider-Verse. Now sometimes Doctor Strange wears gloves, and they're actually super easy to replicate in LEGO. Now instead of just regular yellow LEGO minifigure hands, you want to use these orangish yellow hands as Doctor Strange's gloves. And now that I actually see it on the minifigure, I don't like it at all. It makes me uncomfortable for some reason. Now pretty much any new Doctor Strange minifigure comes with these orange spell pieces, but the very first Doctor Strange minifigure came with these clear pieces with some spell detailing on them, which I think look pretty cool, and I wish we still had something like this. I mean, there's even these fan pieces with some spell casting on them. Now we've been seeing less and less of the soft cloth texture for our capes, and more of these rubber capes, which also means Doctor Strange has a rubber cape, and it's a lot different looking than the cloth cape. Now most would argue that the cloth capes are better, but in the case of Doctor Strange, I think that the rubber cape that Doctor Strange has fits him better, as it's a semi-sentient cape and it gives it more detail and life. Now let's give Iron Man and War Machine some 300 IQ upgrades. We'll start with LEGO Iron Man, and we'll swap out this basic Iron Man figure with one with arm printing. Next, we can build and attach this flight accessory to Iron Man, which gives him some boosted flight powers. Then we can give him an Iron Man themed shield that matches his suit, and then we'll also add a power blast to the other hand. But to really seal the deal of flight, we'll add these thrusters to the bottom of his feet to make it look like a complete Iron Man upgrade. Now upgrading LEGO War Machine is a lot simpler because the only real issue is this cannon back here. It's just way too small. Now we could take the over accessorized route like this War Machine minifigure has, with a stud launcher on one side, 3 upside down roller skates on the other, and some blasters in his hands. Now let's take a much simpler route with these 5 LEGO pieces, which we can use to assemble a little machine gun that's much larger than our first, and we can equip it to the back of War Machine to make him look much better. And now we have a 300 IQ War Machine and Iron Man duo. Now there are quite a few different variations of the Falcon minifigure. We have the oldest, which has these straight plastic wings with no posability, and then we have this version from the Avengers Tower, which has some pretty bulky and uncomfortable wings. Then we have the newest version of the wings, which is the most flexible and probably the best looking, but I feel like it's a little oversized. So what if we remove this newest set of wings and keep the modern Falcon minifigure and add the oldest version of Falcon's wings, and then add a newer version of the Red Wing drone to build a pretty unique version of the Falcon? Now let's build 2 LEGO Marvel superheroes LEGO hasn't made yet, the first being Sentry. Now we'll take the entire body from the Sinestro minifigure, which gives us a pretty good leg up. Then we'll add a dark blue cape, which looks really good of that yellow color, and then we'll add a pretty generic minifigure head. And then I picked out and ordered this yellow hairpiece, which I thought would work great for Sentry, but after putting it on the minifigure, it's just too yellow. So if we take this minifigure hairpiece from Thor and add it to our custom Sentry, it'll look much better than the original one. Then our next superhero we'll build is Wonder Man. Now we'll begin by using this pair of legs from this LEGO Spider-Man suit. Then conveniently there's a torso of a black suit and red W that we can use for Wonder Man. But we'll swap the arms out to match the real suit, and then we'll take this LEGO Blade minifigure and remove the head and add it to our Wonder Man minifigure. Then to complete our custom Wonder Man minifigure, we'll give him this hairpiece, and now we have 2 custom LEGO superheroes. When I got this LEGO Miles Morales minifigure, I thought it was interesting that he had lightning details on his arms, which I thought would be perfect for Thor, so we had to make this upgrade happen. And if you swap the hands out for Thor's hands with these arms, they look perfect for the God of Thunder. We can also make it cooler by adding a lightning bolt in his hand, like he's harnessing the power of lightning. Or we can place Mjolnir in his hand being struck by lightning, but if we want to take it to the next level, we can have it look like Mjolnir is being thrown and getting struck by lightning. Now, I have always been disappointed by the Green Goblin and his glider, so let's upgrade him. We can start things off with a detailed armored pair of Goblin legs, and then we can add the Green Goblin's torso. And because the torso hints at having a cape, let's add this nice looking purple cape to the Green Goblin. Then we can add this armored Goblin mask and cover things up with a Goblin hood, which really sells the look. We can give the Goblin a pumpkin grenade, and then let's build him an ultimate looking Goblin glider with bigger wings and more spikes to finally create my ideal Green Goblin minifigure. Now let's give Scarlet Witch some 300 IQ upgrades. Let's start with her magic. Now she typically gets these pink flames, which are a lot different than the type of magic we see Doctor Strange wield. But I think we can give her a better set of tools using some of these pink translucent parts. And when we add these 2 flame pieces in pink, they look much better. But the best possible way to show off Scarlet Witch's magic is these dark translucent translucent red pieces, and you'll see why when I attach them to her minifigure. Now most LEGO Scarlet Witch minifigures are pretty boring, so we'll switch to this one that isn't from here on out. We'll give her those magic spells, and then let me show you a cool trick we can do of her legs. If we detach the legs from each other and attach them to this LEGO piece with a stud on its side, we can make it look like Scarlet Witch is levitating in the air. We can use the same exact technique for Doctor Strange as well. Now we can finish the Fantastic Four upgrades. You'll notice that Mr. Fantastic has long legs but not long arms, so we can fix that by using this little contraption right here and pressing it into Mr. Fantastic's arm socket. And after doing that, we can attach a blue big figure arm to Mr. Fantastic. Unfortunately, the right color doesn't exist, but this is close enough. So now we have a completely elongated and stretched out Mr. Fantastic. We can also use the same technique to upgrade the Thing, but we'll remove the gloves. And now we have a Fantastic Four with 300 IQ upgrades. Now what if we made Groot giant again? To answer that question, I got to work assembling a humongous LEGO Groot build. And it certainly looks cool. In this video, I'm going to build LEGO Marvel action figures with unique features and abilities. And by the end, we'll have all the LEGO action figures team up for a giant battle. The best way to explain these action figures is giant LEGO minifigures. I'll show you by building LEGO Spider-Man. We'll start by building the feet, which use this technique of turning LEGO bricks on their side. Next, we can connect the build of the foot to the leg. The leg has web detailing just like Spider-Man's suit all over it. Then we can connect LEGO Spider-Man's leg to his body. And doing this gives you a lot more articulation, which will allow for us to pose these LEGO action figures for the battle at the end of this video. I'll then connect the rest of the body, which has Spider-Man's logo on it, these cool shoulder pads that hide these ball joints that you can connect the arms to. Then we'll attach Spider-Man's mask. There's a clip piece on the hand so that you can attach this LEGO web piece to Spider-Man to make it look like he's firing webs. And this is what I mean when I say this is just a giant LEGO Spider-Man minifigure. So I'll have to see if I can find LEGO minifigure versions of each of the next LEGO action figures. We need a villain alongside Spider-Man, so let's build Venom's action figure. We'll start with the feet and then build the rest of the leg. Then I'll attach the body, which has this giant Venom logo on it, on both the front and the back. Next come the arms, which have joints that make it very posable, and on the end are some huge clawed fingers. And right above the arms on the Venom build, we can add some shoulder armor. Now after building Venom's head, you'll notice some clips underneath it so that we can attach this mouthpiece to really make Venom look even more ferocious than he already is. Then we can add Venom's tongue, which really stands out on the black and white look. And adding our completed head to the rest of the body, we have this ferocious Venom symbiote. And we do have a LEGO minifigure to match our Venom action figure. And Venom has happened to catch Spider-Man off guard. He's definitely bigger and stronger than Spider-Man, but does he have spider webs on his side? Because that may just be the difference maker. Now let's build Captain America himself. We'll begin by building his brown boots. Then we'll finish off the rest of the legs and add Captain America's belt. Then I'll build the top half of Captain America's suit and attach the arms. Now there's a spot on one of Captain America's arms where we can place his iconic red, white, and blue shield, which makes the action figure look nearly complete because we're still missing the head, which may just look a little cursed. But on that note, there's a place on the back of Captain America where we can place his shield. And I can't decide which looks cooler, the shield on his back or the shield on his wrist. The shield will definitely come in handy for combat against bad guys. And I'd say this action figure is pretty similar to most LEGO Captain America minifigures. Now alongside Captain America, you have to have Iron Man, so let's build him next. We'll start with the feet, which have thrust pieces hidden underneath them, just like a LEGO Iron Man minifigure. There's also shield pieces built into them as well, and at the top of the legs, the armor detailing is in the shiny gold color. After building and attaching the body, you'll notice that there's an awkward gap in Iron Man's chest, and that's because this unique LEGO brick goes in that spot, and it's a light brick. When I remove this little piece of plastic, it activates the brick, and when I press on the button at the back of it, it lights up. Now I'll build parts around it so it blends into Iron Man's armor, and we have a functioning arc reactor that just slips in the back of Iron Man's chest. The arms match the color of the rest of the suit, and they have thrusters in them as well, just like a LEGO Iron Man minifigure. I'll attach Iron Man's helmet to complete the suit. Now Iron Man is our biggest LEGO action figure yet, and the figure makes LEGO Hulkbusters look super tiny. And the suit is based on the Mark 43, the same as this LEGO minifigure. Now our next LEGO action figure is pretty basic. It's legit just Giant Man. Outside of a few details like a drill piece used to build some suit design, or some interesting techniques used to get the shaping of Ant-Man's mask, it's pretty much just a big version of the Ant-Man minifigure. The cool part about it though is that it came in a regular LEGO set, alongside normal LEGO minifigures to build the airport battle from Captain America Civil War. Now Venom's kind of getting outnumbered by a lot of superhero action figures, so let's build him some reinforcements. Like always, I'll start with the legs of our next Lego action figure, and this has a lot of scales on it. I'll add the body, and then I'll attach the arms, which also have a lot of scales on them. Now after building the head, I can't hide that this Lego action figure is the Green Goblin. He's got a super aerodynamic and pointy helmet, and it's not the Green Goblin without his glider, so let's build that. I'll start with the base of the glider, which has posable wings on either side, and some detailing and supports to hold it up. The spike details at the front of the glider are actually Lego minifigure sword pieces, but we need to sell the look of the wings more, so we'll build this larger wing piece and connect it to the back of the glider to make the wings a bit longer. Now there are some blue pins on the glider and some holes on the Green Goblin's feet that fit perfectly over those pins, which keeps the Green Goblin attached to the glider when you pick it up. Now using these 3 Lego pieces, we can assemble a pumpkin bomb for the Green Goblin to clutch in his hand while he flies on his glider. This glider is actually really fun to fly around, and Spider-Man may just be cooked. This action figure Green Goblin looks a lot like this classic Lego minifigure Green Goblin, and now Venom has the backup he needs. Now let's build some variants of Lego Spider-Man's action figure. Now let's start with Miles Morales, who has the same leg designs as Spider-Man, the same arm designs as Spider-Man, and the same head design as Spider-Man. He's even got clips in his hands so he can attach webs to them as well. But the webs do have this cool translucent blue color to them. Lego even made sure that Miles was shorter than Spider-Man. Poor Miles. Now the next Lego Spider-Man variant is the Iron Spider suit, which instead of being another character is just a different suit for Spider-Man, and it has these 4 long golden tendrils on the back of the suit that we can pose in dynamic ways. Surprisingly, this suit does not have a clip on its hand for spider webs. And I do happen to have Lego minifigures of both these Lego Spider-Men. Now these next 3 Lego action figures are a bit different. Instead of using the classic Lego system, they use their own type of Lego parts, which allows for you to add armor and weapons to it. We'll start by building Captain America first. He's got armored yet posable legs. He's got his red, white, and blue shield, which is in a brighter, more cartoonish color. He's got a ton of armor plating built into his shoulders to add extra detail, and he's got a very cursed mold for his head, which is equally as cursed as the other action figure we built. Next up we have Iron Man, who's got posable legs just like the Captain America before, and he's got some odd looking arms because the seller I bought this through just left out pieces that are supposed to go in this build. So now I'm left with these short stubby arms. We do get this cool armored arc reactor chest plate, and mounted on Iron Man's shoulder is this cool laser cannon, which is shooting some translucent pieces that are actually lightsaber blades. I do enjoy how detailed Iron Man's helmet is as well. Now the biggest of these Lego action figures is the Hulk, who's definitely been skipping leg day and putting all that effort into chest. He has these big fist pieces which are perfect for smashing enemies, and because these figures are compatible, I thought it would be funny to remove their heads and swap them around, which looks hilarious. Wait, I just realized we could do this with the other Lego action figures we've built, and that's much better. This may be the single worst thing I've ever built out of Lego. Now let's build a Lego Wolverine action figure. Now I know I've already built Spider-Man in this video, but this is probably the most colorful build we'll have so far. There's these weird spikes on it, and the bright yellow is really throwing me off. And the bright red X-Men belt adds even more color to it. Next I'll add the body and the arms, and there's 3 slots on the top of each hand for 3 Wolverine claws. Now when building this neat design for Wolverine's mask, you place the bar facing towards the end of the head, which gives Wolverine some awful posture, and you should probably only look at him from the front. Now Captain Falcon may just be my favorite figure of this whole video. He solves the cursed looking problems of Captain America because he has this cool closed off pilot's mask with an upside down laser blaster as a microphone to communicate. And of course he has the iconic Star Spangled Shield. But it gets even cooler. We can add these exoskeletons to the back of Captain Falcon, which may look a little odd now, but when we add these plastic wing pieces to them, they look absolutely phenomenal. I mean, no hate to the other heroes, you just can't beat this presence with those wings. Speaking of wings, I have Red Wing, this little drone that can be attached to the back of Captain Falcon. And I'd say this action figure lines up pretty well with the Lego minifigure. Now the bad guys are still pretty lacking, so let's add Galactus to their ranks. Galactus already falls into the same boat as Ant-Man, and he's already giant and built to battle the Fantastic Four. He's also wearing a dress for some reason. And now it's time for the standoff between good and evil. But the bad guys are just a little outnumbered, so one by one they get taken down and the heroes can claim their victory. Today I'm upgrading Lego Avengers mech. All 6 of the original Avengers and some others you'll just have to wait and see. We'll start with the smallest mech and work our way to the largest mech. Let's start with Thor for our very first Lego Avengers mech upgrade. We'll look at his Lego mech first. The mech has some sturdy legs with these boots designed into it, and built into one of the legs is a clip for Thor to store his hammer on. Then we can build Thor's golden belt as well as a seat for Thor to sit in the mech. Then we can attach some arms to the mech, which have these red pieces on the back which are supposed to represent Thor's cape. And of course Thor needs his mighty hammer, so we can build it with these transparent blue parts on the ends. I'll add it to one of Thor's hands, and then we finish this Lego Thor mech. But we can do better, so let's upgrade it. Start starting with the legs of this upgraded mech, you'll notice there's a lot more gold detailing on it. And instead of just one of Thor's weapons, we have a spot for both Mjolnir and Stormbreaker on this mech. I'll attach the legs to the body of this mech, which has a sleek blue look to it. And then I'll add on the arms, which really help finish the base of the mech. Now we're going to build a cape again, but we're going to give it some extra spice with all this lightning coming off of it. And when we attach it to the mech, it makes the cape look way more vibrant. And to add even more detail to the cape, we'll build this piece right here, which fills the gap in between the two arms. And just like our last mech, we'll build Thor's hammer, but we'll also build Stormbreaker, which looks super detailed. And giving Thor both of his weapons makes the mech look super intimidating and even cooler than the regular Lego version. Now Hawkeye is our next Lego Avenger up, and the issue is he doesn't have a mech, so let's build him one. We'll start with these sleek blacked out legs with a little hint of purple at the back, and then on one of the legs we'll have a spot where his bow can be attached. Then I'll build the arms, which have a lot more purple than the legs, and then comes the body, which has a good mix of both the main colors of purple and black. But now that the mech is built, we'll need to give Hawkeye his weapon of choice, a bow. So I'll start with a simple curved in Lego build and then use a Lego rope piece with studs on to be the string for the bow. And if I attach this piece right here, it allows for us to connect the bow to the mech. And we can't use this Hawkeye minifigure because he's got red detailing. We'll swap him out for this one with some purple detailing to complete our Lego Hawkeye mech and our second Avengers mech. Captain America will be our next Lego Avengers mech, and let's build his set first, which has these flimsy legs to support the mech. There is a spot for the shield at the back of one of the legs. The body of the mech is pretty standard with a seat for Captain America. The arms are also pretty standard and bland, except for a spot on one of the arms which you can place Captain America's shield to pose him in a stylish way. But this is nothing compared to what we're about to build. And just like every other mech, I'll start with the legs, and the feet of this mech are designed to look like boots. They're very articulate and well designed, and there's a spot for Captain America's shield. Now we can attach the legs to the body, and there's a very detailed belt on this body as well as a seat for Captain America. Next, I'll build up these bulky Captain America mech arms, which are unfortunately super loose on this mech for some reason, like they don't hold in place. The other arm holds Captain America's shield, and I think it fits way better on this mech than the other one. And be sure to keep watching because we've got some even crazier mechs coming up in this video. Now I told you I'd build more characters than just the 6 original Avengers, and the first one is going to be Black Panther. And he already has a Lego mech set we'll need to upgrade, which probably has the smallest feet on any mech I've ever seen, which makes him super easy to knock over. Now this mech has a cool black and purple color scheme to it that represents Black Panther's armor, and it's got a seat for him with this cool purple screen at the front. And this mech has some huge clawed talons at the front, which really gives the mech a sense of ferociousness to it. Now let's start by assembling our upgraded Lego Black Panther mech. We have these legs which are stretched out, but we can angle into this cool attack position. We've also got some huge claws on the front of these feet, which is a serious upgrade from the official Lego set. And the rest of the legs look super clean as well, gold, purple, and black detailing all over. Then I'll attach the body of the Black Panther's mech, which has a seat for the man himself. The arms are big and bulky, and they have a cool detail that the Black Panther's claw piece is built into them. Now I wanted to separate the hands from the arms to give them their own segment because these things are phenomenal. They're gold, purple, and gray, and they have these huge purple claws on them that make it look absolutely stunning. This Black Panther mech also has a translucent purple tail that you can clip on the back, which is just icing on the cake to complete this build. I also want to quickly note that all 3 of these mechs right here are designed by Nintendo. I'll link his information and any other custom builds information below. Now let's build a mech for Black Widow, but unfortunately just like her day 1 Hawkeye, she does not have a mech, so let's build her one. We'll begin with the mech's legs, and they have this dark red, black, and gray design to them, with a blaster at the back of one of the legs and a translucent blue bar that makes one of Black Widow's weapons at the back of the other leg. Then I can add the body, which has a seat for Black Widow to pilot the mech, and when I add the arms, they have that dark red and black color scheme to them as well. The mech also comes equipped with a weapon that's an electroshock baton that Black Widow uses. I find this mech to be very similar to the same mech we built for Hawkeye. Now our very next Lego Avenger is going to be Spider-Man. Now the official Lego Spider-Man mech is about as generic as they come. He's got some basic posable and articulate legs, the same thing for his arms. They're very plain, but very posable and articulate. There's a seat for Lego Spider-Man to pilot his mech, and then there's a spot on one of his hands where you can place this Lego web piece to make it look like he's firing a web. Because the mech is so articulate, I like to give it some awkward poses. Now our upgraded Lego Spider-Man mech will really take things to the next level, and you wouldn't think so by looking at the legs from this angle, but if we flip it around, it's a well-armored mech with some surprisingly small feet for the mech's size. Now, the mech has a very posable knee joint, which is kind of satisfying to watch, from the side with armor or the side without armor. And shockingly, the leg of this mech is already taller than the original mech. And with those giant legs, you'd think there'd be a big body, but the body is actually pretty small, and it uses a lot of the same parts from the original mech. The arms of this mech are pretty strange looking as well, with some interesting joints and some very small wrists. And when you attach the arms to the mech, it gives it some very large shoulders, which give an interesting challenge in posing the mech. Now let's build the greenest Lego Avenger, and that's the Hulk, but we'll use this Lego Hulk minifigure instead of the big figure, just for size reasons. Now this Lego Hulk mech is more like a giant build of the Hulk rather than a battle suit or a mech suit. And you can see so by the fact that the legs are detailed to look like the Hulk's legs, even with Hulk-sized toes and giant purple pants like the Hulk has. Then we can shut the Hulk into his mech to pilot it, and we can build the Hulk's arms and hands, which are these big, green, muscular arms with these huge fingers that when you put it on the mech look absolutely terrifying, like he's ready to come after you. The Hulk's big green fingers, though, kind of remind me of the Black Panther mech's claws. Now, what if we had two of this Lego Hulk mech? Well, that's what this upgraded version looks like. I'll show you in just a second. Now, the legs of this mech are very similar to the legs we just looked at. They're just beefier because there's more parts. The most significant upgrade to this Hulk mech are these massive shoulders. It really makes the Hulk look way buffer and more muscular. I mean, he could have a competition with this Lego Spider-Man mech about who has the biggest shoulders. Now, there isn't a crazy difference between the arms of the two Hulk mechs. These newer ones are just longer, so they almost touch the ground. Give the Hulk this big metal beam to really sell the look of how powerful he is. Our very next Lego Avenger is Iron Man. Let's build his basic mech first, which has some pretty standard and simple, flexible Lego legs. And the same goes for his arms, except for the fact that he's got a blaster cannon hidden underneath this arm, and this fancy, shiny, transparent blue shield that I love to look at. And of course, the man powering the mech is this super cool golden Iron Man. I mean, you don't often see an Iron Man with this much gold on him. But now let's upgrade Iron Man with the biggest mech of this whole video. We'll start by building some beefy mech legs for Iron Man. These things are covered in dark red and speckled with some gold, which make it look super cool. I'll connect the two legs to the lower half of the body, which is so big you can support an entire Lego minifigure on it. Now, the body of this big Iron Man mech is almost like a ball, which is super interesting considered how angular Lego is. One of my favorite details of the whole mech is it feels like everything's angled to focus on the arc reactor at the center. And of course, there's a spot for Iron Man to pilot his mech, and when you place it on those legs, you can just feel how big it is. And then we can add the arms to finish the mech. And now today I'm taking basic Lego Marvel minifigures and giving them 400 IQ upgrades, and each upgrade will get bigger as we go. Let's begin by upgrading Lego Spider-Man and building his homemade Spider-Man suit. We'll start with this dark red and gray pair of legs, and then we'll add this jacket piece, which we'll need to add a new set of arms to. Then we can take this dark red rubbery hood piece and add it to the rest of the suit. And then we'll finish off the build by adding a mask to complete the homemade suit's look. And be sure to keep watching to the end because we'll build some even cooler minifigures in this video. This Lego Spider-Man minifigure has a very important piece, which is this small Lego Spider-Man mask piece. The reason why is because it matches the color of pretty much every Spider-Man suit's mask. So you can place it on pretty much any suit to have Spider-Man revealing his face. Now, since we've been talking about Lego Spider-Man, let's talk about one of Spider-Man's villains, the Rhino, who's a Lego Marvel villain that wears this rhino suit with horns on his helmet. He also gets this giant rhino mech, which I think is kind of lame. The horn on his helmet is way too tiny in this mech, and the hands are just too oversized. So let's build a better rhino suit with some instructions I found online. We'll start with the legs, which are a bit skinnier and more angled. Next come the arms, which are much cleaner looking and have a much smoother design and are way smaller than the original version. But the rhino suit's body has to be the most well-designed part of the whole mech. Surprisingly, there are Lego minifigure ice skate pieces built into it. The suit also solves the horn problem with two giant rhino horns at the top to make it look much more menacing. Now let's equip the body parts to finish our rhino mech. Now this build makes the Lego Rhino minifigure look tiny, but surprisingly, it's taller than the mech. Now, the Lego Spider-Man villain Mysterio gets his illusion power from Tony Stark's drone, which are kind of oversized and covered in unnecessary Lego blasters. So using this pile of parts and some instructions I found online, I think we can do better. And with that being said, here is our upgraded Stark drone, which is a much smaller, sleeker version with only 2 blasters that goes perfectly with Mysterio and looks way better than the clunky Lego version. Now let's give LEGO Iron Man some upgrades because these basic little thrusts won't do the job. We can start by taking this pile of red LEGO pieces and assembling them to build a laser cannon for Iron Man, which uses LEGO minifigure claw pieces on the side to build this huge laser cannon that Iron Man can equip to his hand. But this is just the tip of the iceberg as what we can do for Iron Man upgrades. Like this cool Iron Man sword we can build, or this blast we can shoot. We can also assemble this little build to make it look like time is frozen when Iron Man's shooting a blast. Or we can build a mini shield for Iron Man to go alongside this giant weapon. We can also toss out these mini thrusts for a much larger one that makes it look like Iron Man's absolutely blasting off. Speaking of flight, Iron Man has this cool little build which adds some extra thrusters to Iron Man's suit. I also built this cool back build for Iron Man, which is a flamethrower on one arm and a claw on another. And when we add everything together, we can have a very over-accessorized Iron Man minifigure. But we'll be making an even bigger Iron Man upgrade later in this video. In the meantime, I've built 2 upgrades for some more unique Iron Man suits. This sleek black and gold Iron Man suit is the Mark 41, also known as Bones, which can split apart in different pieces. So I built this little LEGO contraption to make it look like it's splitting apart. I've also built this simple flame piece here to equip to the Mark 1 to give it its flame throwing powers. Now War Machine is a very cool character, but the machine gun that they give the LEGO minifigure isn't very cool. So I built an upgraded version of it, which takes a couple LEGO pieces and attaches them to some Technic parts, which makes for a very intimidating machine gun build. Now let's give some of LEGO Iron Man's villains some upgrades, starting with Obadiah Stane, who I built a custom mini Ironmonger for. The Ironmonger has some sturdy, well-built legs, which are equipped with a ton of silver LEGO parts, which make it shiny. It's also got silver on its arms, with one arm having a spear on it and another having a laser cannon on it. The entire back of this thing is pretty much just covered in silver LEGO parts. An interesting detail is that the shoulder blades of this suit are made from LEGO car parts. And one of my favorite details of the entire Ironmonger suit is that the Iron Man Mark 1 helmet is used as the head of the Ironmonger. Now, although this Whiplash minifigure is pretty cool, he is not very accurate to the very first time we see him, so let's build that. We'll start with a pair of orange LEGO minifigure legs, and then we'll add this jacked torso piece, and then we can add this chest plate which has an arc reactor on it. Then we can add Whiplash's whips, and finally we can add the minifigure head to complete the look. And now we have some pretty well upgraded Iron Man villains. Now it's time to upgrade all of the members of the Fantastic Four, starting with Sue Storm, who will use this translucent blue arm to make her the Invisible Woman. We can swap out her regular blue arm for this translucent blue one, which isn't super noticeable, but it does make her look somewhat invisible. Next, we can upgrade Sue Storm's brother, Johnny Storm. I'll start by upgrading Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, with this fire blast, which makes it look like he's flying from the sky. Then I can also equip some fire pieces to his hands to really sell the look of the Human Torch. Now we can easily give Mr. Fantastic the largest upgrade, because unfortunately LEGO only gave him long legs and short arms, but using this piece right here, we can connect it to the body of Mr. Fantastic. Then we can use these large LEGO big figure arms and connect them to Mr. Fantastic to give him some stretched out arms. The only downside is that gap between the body and the fact that they're not the right color, but when you add them alongside the legs, they look perfect and make this figure look 100 times better. You can also get away with doing the same thing to the Thing, but I don't think it looks as good without the stretched out legs. And now that we've upgraded each member of the Fantastic Four, we still need to build one more member, and that's Herbie. Now using these parts here, we can build Herbie a body with some blue and white details. We can give him some arms so that he can pick things up. We can also build him a head, but unfortunately he doesn't have any eyeballs. And then we can finish this Herbie build off with some tiny legs and some fire. And now we can add Herbie to his Fantastic Four family. Now I want to give the Human Torch one more upgrade, so I built this little display base where we can place him, which makes it look like he just landed from a fire-filled flight. Speaking of displaying LEGO minifigures, I built this little box right here with a handle on it that, if you look inside, has gears, which those gears allow for this little piece of rock to spin on top. This allows for LEGO minifigures to be placed on top of it and to spin it to make LEGO minifigure battles come to life. Now I've always been disappointed by the size of this LEGO Groot minifigure, so I wanted to build a bigger version, and I accomplished that with this custom build, who has big and powerful articulate legs that look like trees. Unfortunately, his arms are a little flimsy, but they get the job done, and his head is the perfect size to look just like Groot. Now Black Panther often comes equipped with these silver claws, which are the exact same claws that Wolverine uses. Now I thought it might be a cool way to upgrade him if we swapped out the claws for black ones, which match his suit and make him look a bit more sleek and intimidating. Now when Falcon became Captain America, the LEGO minifigure's wings pretty much just got a color change, which is a shame because the Falcon's wings are one of the coolest things in all of the MCU and I love them. So let's build an upgraded version. Now this new set of wings is a total upgrade from the original set. Now they are a bit thicker than the normal version, but you'll see that comes at a good cause here in a second. Now while the original set of wings are posable, they're not very dynamic. On the other hand, this new set of wings are very posable. They can completely curl in to create all sorts of cool poses. And because the wings are built on these special hinge pieces, you're able to pose them in ways that you couldn't with the original set. My favorite pose has to be having them facing forward like they're ready for battle. You can also stretch them all the way out for this giant wingspan. Now we can make Venom even cooler if we build him out of Lego bricks. We'll build some legs, and then we'll build the arms and torso using minifigure hands to capture that spider detail on Venom's body. We'll use a minifigure head though to complete the look. Now let's build a custom Dr. Doom minifigure, because the real one's too expensive. We'll start Dr. Doom off of a green pair of legs and a gray belt, and then we can add this body with some gray arms. Then we can add a dark green cape, and then we can add a mask, because the rest of the head gets covered up by the hood. And now we have our own complete Dr. Doom minifigure that didn't cost us $100. The Hulkbuster is a giant Iron Man mech, which is used to battle the Hulk. The only problem is it's a little too tall, so I tried to shrink the Hulkbuster down into this mini version of the Hulkbuster, which is quite beefy, but unfortunately it's still bigger than the Hulk. So on my third attempt, I built this small Hulkbuster right here, which for whatever reason has blue pieces on the insides that really do stand out. But if we're looking at the positive, it is the same size as the Hulk. Now this big red build is Juggernaut, an X-Men character who has these rare arm pieces and a minifigure head inside the build, and he's easily way bigger than the Hulk. Today I'm taking Lego Marvel sets and throwing away the instructions to build something new out of them, and each build is gonna get crazier. Starting with this Lego Captain America mech, which has some articulation, a seat for Captain America, and a giant shield. Now let's take this mech apart and throw away the instructions. And with this bin of Lego pieces, we can build the Millennium Falcon Captain America edition, which uses all of these parts from the Captain America mech to build a Millennium Falcon. Now the shield pretty much holds everything together because underneath doesn't look very Millennium Falcon-esque. But that's because this little Captain America Millennium Falcon is holding a secret. If you flip out all the sides, you can turn it into a little Captain America robot. Now what if we took this big Lego Galactus build and tossed out the instructions to build this chunky little Galactus build? He's got these big bulky legs which remind me a lot of a Lego minifigure's leg. He does have some pretty flimsy little arms with 2 fingers on the end, which can still pick up a Lego minifigure, but his head pretty much remains unchanged from the original build. So now let's set up a battle of this new Galactus and the Fantastic Four. I'll start by placing Galactus in the middle of the battle, and then I can add the Human Torch with his flame powers to one side of Galactus, and then we can take Mr. Fantastic, who's got some upgraded arms to make him look supersized, and we can place him on the other side of Galactus. Next, let's take this undersized version of the Thing and place him in Galactus's arm like he's locked in the heat of battle with Galactus. Then we can take Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman, and our final member of the Fantastic Four and place her on the back of Galactus to complete this epic battle. Now this is the giant white and gold Hulkbuster built from a Lego astronaut, and this Hulkbuster is absolutely ginormous. Look at it next to a Lego Iron Man minifigure. The Hulkbuster honestly has a lot of articulation, and the designer was very creative in using certain parts to get the right articulation for the Hulkbuster. There's a bunch of interesting pieces at the back that hint at this having a flight system. Now there's obviously no printing on the gold helmet like other Hulkbusters have. The suit also opens up in a pretty creative way. You have to move 4 parts just to reach Iron Man, which isn't difficult but more satisfying to do, and there's a seat for him in the mech. There's some buttons and computers to help control the Hulkbuster as well. And right below the Hulkbuster's head is the suit's own version of the arc reactor. Now honestly, instead of the red and gold Iron Man suit to pilot this Hulkbuster, I think the Iron Legion suit that's white, blue, and gold would look much better inside it. Also, just to show off the sheer size of this white Hulkbuster, here's what it looks like next to the last Lego Hulkbuster. It's safe to say Iron Man won't have any issues with the Hulk in this one. Now this is a very cool looking Lego Venom mech. It has these menacingly large clawed hands, perfect for picking up Lego Miles Morales. There's a seat for Venom to sit in the center of the mech, and then there's Venom spikes all along the arms of the mech. You can also move and pose the mech in pretty much any way you want to. But you clicked on Lego Marvel sets without instructions, so let's take this mech apart and build something else. And that's this tiny little spider, which is going to be the smallest build of this entire video. It uses some of the Venom mech's claws to help build the face of the spider, and then for its legs, it uses the Venom mech's fingers. And just like a real spider, it does have 8 legs. It even has the Venom logo incorporated into the top of the spider, which looks really cool. And in front of that, there's a seat for Venom to sit. And behind the Venom spider is this little bar piece connected to the spider, which we can connect this super long web so that we can make it look like the spider is spinning its own web. Now for this next one, we won't even need a Lego set, because what if I told you there was a Lego Spider-Man villain named Big Wheel, and he drives a big wheel? And I'm not talking about this, I'm talking about this type of big wheel. Now I attempted to build a custom model of this, but the design for it just seems to fall apart whenever I try to get it together. So let's look at it in two separate parts. Now let's start with the part that really sells the name Big Wheel, which is this giant wheel made of Lego. It's two different wheels connected to each other with these Lego bar pieces, and it does have some nice detailing on the side, but the more interesting part is what's inside the big wheel. Now there's a seat with some control panels for our Spider-Man villain, who's also named Big Wheel. And then you've probably seen these translucent parts on the front and the back of the big wheel. Well, that's to help suspend it in the wheel, but it doesn't work very effectively. Now there are some interesting weapons on the side of the main part of the big wheel. There are two blasters, one being a pretty standard Lego piece, and then another being a Lego minifigure ski pole piece used as a blaster. And then right under that are these funny looking yellow clawed arms, which aren't very effective for picking up things because they're quite fragile. Now this interesting Marvel set includes a Spider-Man drone and the Vulture and his wings. Now before we obliterate this set to build something different out of it, let's take a look at the set. We get this gold and black Spider-Man drone that has a seat for Spider-Man to pilot it, so it's not really a drone. The suit Spider-Man wears matches the drone and has this cool gold and black style to it that I really like. Now like any other drone, this drone has 4 propeller blades on it, some stud launchers on top, and then it's got a secret compartment in the back to store something good. Now the other build in this set is the Vulture and a set of wings. The Vulture minifigure looks like a fighter jet pilot, and he's very detailed with this bracket on his back that allows for him to connect himself to the wings. The wings are covered in stickers to show off cool detail, and they have these giant turbines underneath them. Now let's take these two builds and take them apart and include a T-Rex, which gives us this odd looking Spider-Man build that makes a lot more sense when you place it on the T-Rex and move all the parts down to cover it like a battle T-Rex. There's a seat for Spider-Man at the top of the T-Rex, there's some stud launchers on the side, and there's even a helmet for the T-Rex. My favorite part is the fact that there's 2 pieces used on the Vulture's wings at the very back, but you'd never know just by looking at the front of the build. And this won't be the only Lego Marvel T-Rex we see in this video. Now what if I told you the silly little yellow helicopter belonged to one of the most iconic Marvel villains of all time? Well, this is the Thanos copter. It has a seat for Thanos to pilot it, some landing gear, a giant propeller blade at the top of the helicopter, and a much smaller one located at the back of the helicopter. Now you've probably deducted that it's just a little too small for the regular sized Lego Thanos to fit inside it. So we'll use this minifigure sized Thanos to pilot his helicopter. I honestly think this is how Avengers Endgame should have ended. Now Man-Thing is probably one of the strangest Marvel characters of all time, so let's build him out of Lego. We can start by building the legs, and they look like a combination of a tree stump and a swamp, and they're quite poseable, and we can use this little brick at the top to help connect it to the rest of the body when we place 2 of the legs next to each other. We'll continue with the tree mixed with a swamp theme for the body of the build, but I honestly think the back kind of looks like a turtle shell. The design also has some vines hanging off to the side. We can connect the body to the legs, but the build honestly doesn't want to stay up, and it's only going to get sketchier from here. Next we can add the arms, and this really makes the Man-Thing look a lot more complete, but a little secret is that they're just the arms from the Hulk. Now when it comes to finishing the build of the head, here's where things start to get sketchy. To place the final vine in this build, it needs to fit in between the 2 other vines with no real connection point to help finish the look of Man-Thing. And then you'll notice there's no studs that directly fit this thing into the Man-Thing build, because you're just supposed to slide the head into the Man-Thing, but you'll see it easily falls apart. And in the rare chance I do manage to fit it on the Man-Thing, it kind of falls out with any movement. But hey, at least it looks pretty cool and is bigger than the Hulk, although it's much smaller than Hulkbuster. Now we just looked at this Lego Spider-Man T-Rex, but here's an even cooler Lego Spider-Man T-Rex. The Spider-Rex's head kind of looks like a Spider-Man mask. It's got a posable jaw so that it can snack on Spider-Man's enemies like Venom, and it's got a spider web as a mohawk. It's got these posable tiny Spider-Man T-Rex arms, and on the back of the Spider-Rex there's a seat for Spider-Man to control it. The Spider-Rex is supported by these well-built posable legs. Now what I bet you don't expect from this Lego Spider-Man T-Rex is at the back there's this secret space where you can store Spider-Man's enemies. Now there are actually 2 Lego Spider-Rexes. There's one that's an official Lego set, and it's this Venom Spider-Rex with a huge tongue and a secret compartment just like the other Spider-Rex. This is Lego Iron Man, and today we're going to be building all sorts of crazy Lego Iron Man upgrades out of Lego. Then we'll combine each upgrade for the perfect Iron Man armory. Now let's start by looking at all of Lego Iron Man's unique tools. Now the most common thing to see Lego Iron Man equipped with are these thrusts. 2 on his legs and 2 on his arms. But if you want to add more detail to those leg thrusts, you can build this, which makes it look like he's blasting off. And if you want to take it to an even more extreme level, you can add this piece, which makes it look like he's really flying. But the majority of Iron Man's tools need to be held in his hand. Like this one, you can actually launch. This one may be my favorite, and it's a sword. You can also equip him with a shield, but I prefer the one that looks more like his armor. Then there are these pieces, which look like he's launching blasts from his arms. Now there's this super detailed Lego Nano Gauntlet that unfortunately doesn't fit on Lego Iron Man's hand. There is this much smaller gauntlet with no Nano Gauntlet printing that we can use instead though. But if we really care that badly, we can use this little clear piece right here and connect it to the Nano Gauntlet to give Iron Man one massive Nano Gauntlet in his hands. Now his final tool is this set of wings to help him fly, and when you put it all together, he looks very over accessorized. Now the cool part about Iron Man is that he's just a guy in a suit, and did you know that Lego makes 3 different versions of his suit? Well, more specifically his helmet. Now the very first design for Lego Iron Man's helmet is nearly perfect. It looks great, but the only issue is that when you open the helmet too many times, the joints get weak and often break. So Lego overcorrected and created the second design for this helmet. Now the only thing about this is that it doesn't open, which kind of defeats the purpose of Iron Man. Thankfully, Lego did correct their mistakes with a third design that does open up. Now it does have the issue of just being a little too large compared to the old helmet. Now since we're talking about Lego Iron Man suits, let's upgrade the very first one, the Mark 1, which unfortunately suffers from that second helmet design, meaning it can't open up. But the suit is very detailed. Lego did a good job considering it was built in a cave with a box of scraps. Now unlike later Iron Man suits, this one can't fly, so thankfully Lego included a jetpack to fix that problem. Now the Mark 1 could also shoot flames. Let's add some flames to our Lego minifigure. Now the Iron Man Mark 1 reminds me of the Ironmonger, which is piloted by Obadiah Stone to battle Lego Iron Man. Now this official Lego version is pretty cool. It's got stud launchers on either arm as well as some cool wiring on it, but it's just way too oversized compared to the movie. So I found some instructions online to build a better sized version, and it is honestly perfect. It's just big enough to loom over Iron Man, but not oversized. It's got 2 unique weapons attached to either arm, all of the cool supports in the back like the real mech does, and bonus points because it's shiny. And to help build up the shoulders of the mech, it uses these car parts almost like it's a transformer. And you'll notice the Lego piece used as the head of the Ironmonger is the exact same helmet used on the Iron Man Mark 1. Not to mention, this Ironmonger is superposable. I'm going to link a document with this Ironmonger build and any other custom models I use in the description below. Now let's upgrade these hammer drones built by Justin Hammer, who actually doesn't exist in Lego, but we can change that just by putting a minifigure in a suit. Now the hammer drones aren't all bad. They're flexible, they have these cool robot heads and missile launchers, but they're way too oversized. They should be the height of a Lego minifigure, and there's only 2 out of the 4 total drones, so we can upgrade it by building all 4 of the drones in minifigure size. The drones are nearly identical of each other with a couple differences. Each drone also has a second version showing off its capabilities. Our first being the gray air assault drone, which has roller skates built into the back of it, and its second version is in flight mode with some flames coming out of the bottom of its legs. Next in this tan color is our ground assault drone, which has this huge cannon on his back and another smaller one on his arm. And the second version of the assault drone has firepower added to those cannons. You'll also notice it has an upgraded drone head, and that's because I stole it from the oversized one. This dark blue drone is the Sea Assault drone, and he's got this interesting thing on his back, which we can learn from the other version as a missile launcher, and it's built so it looks like these missiles are flying through the air. But this green drone is probably my favorite because it looks like a toy army soldier, and it's called the Tactical Assault drone, and it's got rocket launchers on its wrist, which looks super cool. And now we have 4 highly upgraded hammer drones. This is Igor, a giant blue Iron Man suit used to carry heavy objects. Now there are 2 official Lego versions of Igor, and they're the same size and accomplish the same things, just with a couple different blue Lego parts. But their biggest issue is they're just so oversized compared to Lego Iron Man. I even tried to build a custom model, and that was also oversized. But on my 4th attempt to find the perfect Igor, I finally found the right one. It's super well detailed at the cost of being super fragile. It's got cool details like the fact that its shoulders are built of roller skates, and it's the perfect size for Lego Iron Man. Now Iron Man doesn't wait to be upgraded. He upgrades himself with a ton of unique Iron Man suits, like the Iron Man Mark 5 suit, which comes out of a suitcase. And I have 2 different versions of the suitcase, the first being an official Lego version with a sticker on it, and the other being an oversized brick built version I built for my own figure. But if we want to go even more silver, we have the Iron Man Mark 2, which was before Iron Man picked his red and gold style, which I have no complaints about because it set us up to get War Machine. This white, blue, and gold suit is known as the Iron Legion, and it's a soldier to help Iron Man fight his battles. We get this cool green and Bronze Iron Man, which may be my favorite suit of his that's meant for underwater missions. One of the more unique Iron Man suits is this suit, which has some power drills on his arms to help with demolition and rescue missions. And if you've ever wondered what would happen if Venom went after Iron Man, well, we have an answer with this Venomized Iron Man suit, which is half Venom, half Iron Man. It looks super cool. And this Iron Man suit with golden arms is unfortunately our last Iron Man suit ever, being the Mark 85. This is the Hulkbuster, a giant mech for Lego Iron Man that's pretty much a sized up version of Iron Man's suit, which he uses to fight the Hulk. Now there is quite a wide range of good to bad Lego Hulkbusters, but this newest version of the Hulkbuster is pretty much perfect, so I don't think I'll need to upgrade it, even though I actually intended to, but I missed parts in my Lego order. It was actually one of 3 different builds I couldn't complete in time for this video. One of the builds is going to be the cave scene from Iron Man 1, and another build was going to be a giant Iron Man base. Now while we're upgrading Lego Iron Man, we should also upgrade his friends, like this cool purple Iron Man suit named Rescue that belongs to none other than Pepper Potts. And something I've noticed while collecting Lego Marvel minifigures is that Lego never gives her the same hairstyle or hair color, but this Rescue suit is undoubtedly very cool. She even gets a set of wings that we can attach to her back to increase her flight speed. And now to really upgrade Rescue, we can give her own purple and gold mech, which we can place her inside of, and it's just like pretty much any other regular Lego Marvel mech. Now Iron Man's other partner in stopping crime is War Machine, who honestly has a super cool suit design that Lego often fumbles with this lame machine gun on the side. So using just 5 Lego pieces, we can assemble a much more intimidating and better looking machine gun for War Machine. Now instead of equipping War Machine with a basic little mech, let's build something even bigger and stronger than anything we've seen before in this video. And that's this huge War Machine mech, which has a seat for War Machine so you can place him into the mech to pilot it, sturdy robotic legs that are super well detailed, as well as posable armored arms, and we can't forget about War Machine's machine gun at the very top of the mech. And surprisingly, this makes the Hulkbuster look tiny, which is saying a lot. And the coolest part about this mech is that it's so flexible it can be played with like a real Lego set without falling apart. Now let's look at some cool tech Lego Iron Man uses to upgrade himself. Now this is a suit scanner which can scan for damages on Iron Man suits. We also have these cool holograms which show off different versions of Iron Man suits, like this one shows off the Mark 1. He's also got these cool robots that can help him work on his suits and inventions. One of my favorite things in Iron Man's tech collection is this thing right here. There's a screen at the back of it, and then it's got these 2 robotic arms to help operate on Iron Man suits. One of the funniest pieces of tech he has is this tiny Iron Man suit being analyzed on this bench, and of course there's all sorts of other screens and tech in his workshops. But the main thing in Iron Man's workshops is the Hall of Armor, which we can fill each slot with a ton of unique and interesting Lego Iron Man suits. And now Lego Iron Man's been successfully upgraded to build the ultimate Lego Iron Man armory. If you want to see me recreate epic Iron Man battle scenes, check this video out right here.